Oh, welcome back to the Jacob Hornberger Show. This is Jacob Hornberger, president of the Future of Freedom Foundation. Nice to be back with y'all on this holiday season. Merry Christmas to all of you. You know, I've come up with a great idea for a new welfare state program here at Christmas time. I mean, you're going to love it. It's just fantastic. Here's the proposal that we require by law everybody to buy a present, a Christmas present for their family and their friends and their relatives, as part of their family. And that if they fail to do that, the government will put a penalty on that to be collected by the IRS. If people refuse to pay the penalty, then of course we all know what happens to them, garnishments and liens and levies and attachments and foreclosures and so forth by the IRS. So isn't this a great idea? I mean, look, if we force everybody to buy presents for other people, that will force them to be good. That'll make them good, moral, compassionate, caring people. And of course, it'll also solidify the IRS's position as a good, caring, compassionate institution because it'll be doing the enforcement. And then think of the benefits for the recipient. I mean, the recipient gets presents, and look at the economy. People have to go out and spend money to buy the presents. Yeah. I mean, you can tell I've put some thought into this welfare state program. I think it's just fantastic. I mean, what better way to get people to be good, to be caring, compassionate, and to bring prosperity to the economy at the same time? Well, of course, you're sitting there saying, Jacob, this has got to be the most ludicrous thing you've ever heard, right? Well, but isn't that what the entire welfare state is based on? The idea of coercion, of forcing people to be good to others. And it's appropriate that we think about this, that we reflect on it here at Christmas time. Because this is the season of giving, where you're giving of yourself and you're giving presents and so forth. And but, we all have become accustomed to the idea that this is voluntary. That whether you want to give a present to your children or to your parents or to your brothers and sisters or to your friends is something that should be left to you. To the conscience, to the free will of each and every individual. The thought that we would force people to buy presents it's like, what planet do you live on? Well, the principle's no different with respect to the welfare state. You recall the story of the young rich man who approaches Jesus and he says, "Look, I do everything to follow your commandments, and I've done everything, all your suggestions and so forth. What else can I do, to follow you, to get into heaven and so forth?" And Jesus says, "Sell everything you have, give it to the poor, and follow me." Well, the young rich man just could not let go of his attachment. I mean, I'm no biblical scholar, but my hunch is that Jesus didn't really expect him to do that. He just wanted to make the young man confront the fact that he had this psychological and spiritual attachment to these things that interfered with his ability to follow Jesus. And so Jesus was saying, let go of that attachment. He's making this guy confront that this attachment he has, and so the guy couldn't let go, and he walks away dejectedly. But notice, an important part of the story here, that Jesus didn't chase after him and force him to go get his money or his property and distribute it to the poor. Jesus didn't call the Roman officials over and say, look, he's not helping the poor. We've got to force him. Use the power of Caesar to seize his money. He's a bad person. He's not sharing with the poor. Take his money away and give it to other people. He didn't do that at all. Why? Because of this great gift of free will that God is endowed with in all of us. It's this God-given right of free will or freedom of choice, where you decide what to do with your own money. And that may very well mean that you reject your friends, you reject your neighbor, you reject people in need, just like that young rich man just walked away instead of following Jesus' suggestion to sell everything and give it to the poor. But that's part of what freedom is all about. If you're not free to say no, then you're not free. You know, if the government has the authority to force you to do what other people think is responsible, compassionate, caring, the moral thing to do, you're not free. Freedom entails the right to do the irresponsible, the immoral, the selfishness, the greed, whatever name you want to put on, you know, the hoarding your own money, you know, Ebenezer Scrooge type thing. That's what freedom entails. It entails the right to make irresponsible, wrongful choices, so long as those choices don't involve the initiation of force against other people. In other words, as long as you're not murdering and raping and stealing and burglarizing and so forth, defrauding people and so forth, you got a right to do whatever you want with your life. It doesn't matter that 99% of the rest of the people don't like it. I mean, we understand this concept with respect to religion, right? I mean, you know, people make choices with respect to religion. Some choose to be Catholic, some choose to be Jews, some choose to be Muslim, some choose to be, you know, Protestant, some choose to be atheists. They don't even believe in God, you know. But we protect that choice, even though everyone else may say, well, you know, that's irresponsible. Why, he's bringing up his children as atheists. It's just horrible, you know. But very few people, at least here in this country, would say, use the force of the government, the force of Caesar, to go get that family and force their children into church and into religious education and so forth, because we believe in free will, freedom of choice in this area. Well, that's what distinguishes us libertarians from statists, you know, both conservatives and liberals, that we libertarians take that principle of freedom of choice with respect to religion, and we apply it to economic activity. That is, what you do with your own money. I mean, there's no difference. I mean, you know, where you go to church, whether you go to church, what you do with your money reflects your values, your principles, your beliefs. If you don't want to go to church, that's your right. Even if 99% of the people are sitting there saying, hey, that's not a good thing, and it's not a good thing you're not taking your children to church, it may not be a good thing. But you got a right to go that route. And by the same token, you may sit here and say, man, I'm never going to donate to any charity. I'm never, ever going to buy any presents for anyone. I'm never, ever going to help my parents when they get old and they're sick and dying of cancer in the hospital and so forth. I'm just not going to do that for anyone. Everybody else may say, well, you know, that's not the best attitude to have. But you have a right to do that. And that's what distinguishes us libertarians from the statists, is that the statists say, you don't have a right to do what's irresponsible. You have to be forced to be good and caring and compassionate. In other words, the statist position is you have a right to do what you want with your own money so long as your choices are the right ones. If you make the wrong ones, they're going to punish you. And that's one of the fundamental distinctions between statists, liberals and conservatives, and libertarians. I mean, a classic example of this is Social Security, which, as we all know, is the crown jewel of the socialistic welfare state. I mean, this was the watershed program in American history. This is the program that originated among the German socialists at the turn of the century, the 19th to the 20th century. It was adopted by the Iron Chancellor of Germany, Otto von Bismarck. He acknowledged that he got it from the German socialists. So it originated in Germany, Social Security. It didn't originate with Franklin or Franklin or Madison or any of the founding fathers. It originated with Otto von Bismarck, and then it gets to Roosevelt. Okay? So that's why if you go to the Social Security Administration's website, you will see a bust, not of James Madison, not of Patrick Henry, not of Ben Franklin, not of George Washington. You'll see a bust of Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor of Germany, because that's where they got the idea of Social Security. Now, Social Security is interesting because it has actually two components to it. It has a retirement component, right, and a charity component. On the retirement component, they're saying, well, we're making you be responsible by saving for your retirement. Okay, that's the retirement component, the responsible thing. That you're free to do whatever you want with your own money, but as long as it's responsible. And that's what Social Security is. We're going to force you to be responsible and care for your own retirement. Well, but it's really a fraud, because you're not really saving for your retirement with Social Security. I mean, it's a straight stealing program, a straight plunder program, a straight tax and spend program. This notion that there's a fund is just self-deception. There's never been a fund. There never will be a fund. All they've done with Social Security is they've taken people's money and go spend it on the old people living at that time. Plus, they had money left over. They went out and spent it, like on, the Vietnam War or the Iraq War or whatever. Whatever they want to spend it on, they spend it on, because it's just tax revenue. They call it a Social Security tax. It'd have been no different if they'd called it a food tax or a increase in the income tax. It doesn't matter, because it's all just taxes. It's not like an IRA, okay, where you're taking money out of your savings, you're putting it into an investment, to a money market fund or some other kind of fund. That's not what it's like. It's not like putting your money in a safety deposit box, or in your home safe, have about $3,000 there. This is straight tax and spend. The IRS taxes you, the money goes off, poof, gone. The deception on the fund comes in is where, and they're part of the deception, the politicians and the bureaucrats, to make it look like, oh, there's a fund, to give everybody, that sense of, oh my gosh, I've got all this money saved up in my retirement account, with Social Security. They put in a government bond, and well, I mean, this is so ludicrous. It's like you owe it to yourself type thing. I mean, suppose, for example, you have a safe at home and you're saving cash for your child's college education, and you've got $30,000 in cash in your home safe. Well, one day you decide that you're going to go out and just spend it up, man. You're going to go out and booze it up and buy a Ferrari and go to the mall and spend and try to help the economy. What a joke that is. And so you spend all the $30,000, all right, but you put a promissory note into the safe. It says, I owe $30,000 for my son's college education. And so one day your son comes up and says, Dad, do you have that money available for my college? And, oh, sure, son. There's a fund there, and it is fully funded. I've got, bonds in there. Not government bonds, my own promissory notes. And your son sits there and says, what? Well, yeah, son, it's fully funded. Here, let me show you. I got a promissory note there. Well, that's ridiculous, right? Because you have to still go out and get the money somehow or another, that $30,000, to replenish what was there. The promissory note means nothing. And it's the same with Social Security. Those bonds mean nothing. The government still has to go get the money through taxation on the young and the productive in order to fund the people that are elderly. So it's a straight Ponzi scheme. I mean, it's a shame that Perry is doing so poorly in the polls now, because I was starting to say maybe he'd be out there still talking about Social Security being a Ponzi scheme, but he's running scared. He got people nervous. Oh my gosh, my Social Security is going to be taken away from me, So he shut the whole thing down about Social Security being a fraud and a Ponzi scheme. So that's the retirement component. The charity component is just as bad. I mean, what they're saying is that when they force people to pay these taxes that are used to fund the elderly, that's a reflection that they're honoring your mother and father, that you're participating in this process. It's giving your mother and father money, and therefore that shows you that you're a caring, compassionate, good person, along with the, Social Security Administration, the IRS, and so forth, the president, the Congress. Well, it's ludicrous. I mean, it's ludicrous. How can you have a system based on charity and compassion that's based on force, right? I mean, if I go to and accost you in a dark alley, and I go and take all your money and go take you to the ATM and force you to withdraw, $5,000, and then I go and give it to the poor, the needy, give it to your parents, let's say. Does that make me a good, caring, compassionate person? Does it make you a good, caring, compassionate person? Of course not. You know, we all agree I'm just a thief, and it doesn't affect the outcome of what's going on here. And so there's no charity involved at all. Really, what's going on behind Social Security, as well as Medicare and Medicaid and education grants and foreign aid to dictators and all the other welfare state programs, is that the government is saying to the American people, you are a bad, bad, immoral, evil people. And this is why we need to force you to be good. I mean, isn't that the message? That we can't let you be free to make these choices yourself, because we all know that you're going to make bad choices. You're going to make immoral choices. You're not going to help the poor. You're not going to be helping your parents and honoring your parents if they get sick in their old age. You know, you're just going to let them die in the streets because you're a bad people. Because why else would you have to force an entire nation of people to do this unless you had that mindset? I mean, if you trust people, you know, like libertarians do, I mean, we trust freedom. We believe in freedom. We believe in the free markets. We believe in freedom of choice. We believe in people. Okay, we don't. Here's the difference. We don't put our faith in Caesar and in force. That's what the statists do. You know, liberals and conservatives. We libertarians, we put our faith in freedom, and in free markets. And for those of us that believe in God, we put our faith in God. You know, we get in a jam, we get in trouble and everything. Hey, we Christians, you know, we that's where we then turn to the Lord and say, hey, you know, can you give me a hand here? I'm in deep trouble, or at least help me get through it. But all of our faith is placed in freedom and freedom of choice, the market process, nature's God. Over here, all the faith and the belief and the conviction is put in Caesar and force and the IRS and coercion. Huge difference. And you know, it's the irony of this, I mean, not to digress too much necessarily, but the irony of this is that most people are products of public schools, right? I mean, most people go to public schools, most are graduates. Yeah, there's some in private schools and some in homeschooling, but by and large, I mean, even everybody is subject to a government-approved education. You know, even the homeschoolers, most of the times, got to get the curriculum approved by the state and so forth. But isn't it interesting that the state has been controlling education for more than 100 years, and what, there's 3, maybe 4 generations living today, that all of these generations, isn't it interesting, are composed of evil, self-centered, selfish, uncaring, non-compassionate people that need to be forced to be good? I mean, you know, this is what public schooling produces? An entire nation of people that cannot be trusted with freedom, that have to be forced to take care of their own retirement, that have to be forced to honor their mother and father and take care of the elderly that may be in need, even if it's not your own parents, you know. That this is what the public schooling system has produced, because if that's what it's produced, and that's what they're really saying, when they say that all these programs can't be repealed because you know, Americans are too mean and selfish and greedy and self-centered and non-compassionate and uncaring, they're really saying that that's what public schooling has done. Well, we libertarians, you know, we say, you know, repeal this junk, repeal it immediately. And you know, and I've heard, you know, arguments of, oh no, Jacob, we've got to do this gradually because people are dependent on it. Nonsense. You got to believe in people. I mean, you know, God doesn't create, you know, helpless, dependent, you know, people that just can't make it in life. Oh, sure, there's some people in their last days on earth, you know, they're in the cancer wards, or they're invalids, or, you know, they can't make it. Okay, but that's a relatively small number of people. I mean, there's people in the 70s and 80s that are healthy enough to work, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I see people out in the mainstream of life interacting with people, you know, Walmart or Costco or wherever, that they're older, they're in their 70s or 80s, and they're interacting with young people, and it's a heck of a lot better than sitting in some dark corner over there, waiting for the mail to come in to get your Social Security check. But there's a lot of prosperous, wealthy people that are collecting this stuff that don't need it. They're already wealthy enough. And we all know the country's going down the tubes. The government's bankrupt. They keep borrowing more and more and more money. That's what the debt ceiling was all about. They're sending our nation down the road to Greece and Italy. And they're spending like there was no tomorrow. I mean, when the debt ceiling got lifted, they were saying, oh, please, just one more time, please. Okay, so the debt ceiling was lifted. I predicted, you guys have been hearing this show, knew that I was predicting it the whole way. The Republicans were going to cave because they always cave. But do you notice since then that they try to slash the spending? Of course not. They're just going on like business as usual. They're laughing their tail off. The mainstream media that was crying, Chicken Little, oh, the sky is falling if we don't lift the debt ceiling. They're laughing like they laugh every time that the debt ceiling is raised. And not any of them is saying, hey, we were lucky to get by this time. It's time now to slash spending because in a couple of years from now that debt ceiling is going to be reached. No. They're laughing because they know when the debt ceiling's reached, they're going to go through the same charade. Sky is falling, we have to do this. And when we turn around and say, well, wait a minute, why didn't you call for slashing spending? So that when we got to the debt ceiling, the ceiling could not be raised, would not be raised, because a lot of debt's a bad thing. They're just going to laugh and say, go ahead, lift it again. Well, we libertarians would say, repeal it immediately. I mean, here's the moral case. If you found a man embezzling from your business or somebody's business and had been embezzling for 30 years, okay? He's been embezzling from this business for 30 years. And you catch him, and all of a sudden he says, look, I've really become dependent on this money. I mean, my lifestyle is dependent on it. I don't have a lot of, much savings or whatever, and can you please just do this gradually? Can you let me continue embezzling on a slower process and just wean me off over the next 10 years, and then you can take me off? Well, we'd all just laugh at that. That's ridiculous because it's not his money. He's embezzling. It belongs to the owner's money. Now, the statists would say, oh, the owner's evil and mean, and he ought to let the embezzler do it gradually because the embezzler is dependent. Well, we libertarians think in terms of moral principles. Unlike the statists, we say, no, it's wrong to embezzle. It's wrong to steal somebody else's money. That money belongs to that person. If he wants to donate it to the embezzler, he's free to do that. If everybody else wants to donate their money to the embezzler, they're free to do that. But to sit back like a lot of the statists do and say, man, that guy, that owner, he's really a mean, selfish, self-centered person. He ought to let the embezzler go for a long period of time and gradually get off the money. Well, yeah, how cavalier to be good with somebody else's money. And that's really what the welfare state's all about. It's about one group of people, by the way, there's military welfare here too. I mean, when we talk about the standing army, the military-industrial complex, all the contractors, all the people dependent on the military largesse, all that's military welfare because it is totally non-essential. And there's nobody attacking or invading or trying to conquer the United States. This is all imperialistic nonsense. And it's largesse. It's like the military in Egypt, just largesse. They want to just keep plundering and looting the Egyptian people. No different here. Okay, and so you've got this whole system that's based on the plunderbund system. The idea that the state will be used to take money from one group of people and give it to another. So everybody's doing his best in this plunder system to protect his own pocketbook from getting plundered. I mean, everybody's looking for deductions and everybody's looking for credits and tax loopholes and so forth because everybody's trying to protect his money. I mean, the statists condemn the rich. Every statist around, you go to any mainstream commentator on the news and so forth that exclaims against the rich and everything, I guarantee you look at their tax return and they have taken advantage of every single deduction and every single tax loophole they can take. So everybody's trying to protect his money, but then you've got the parasitic class, both on the welfare side and the warfare side, that are doing their best to get into the people's pocketbooks. Frederick Bastiat said it best. The state is the great fiction by which everyone is trying to live at the expense of everyone else. Well, of course, not everyone's trying to do that, but the people that are on the largesse, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education grants, dictators, the military dictatorship in Egypt, they are recipients of, billions of dollars in welfare state largesse. Those are the people that are out there trying to get their dirty little hands on everybody else's money. Well, the libertarian notion is, look, why not leave people free to keep everything they earn? Okay, get rid of the income tax, get rid of the IRS. You keep it, you made it, you keep it. You decide what to do with it. We believe in you, You'll either invest it, you'll put it into your business, you'll save it. But even if you don't donate a dime, all that goes into the production of capital, which is the key to a rising standard of living. When there's a lot of savings in society, standards of living are rising. When there's a lot of consumption in society, standards of living are dropping. That's why I scoffed at the notion of, taking your savings and go spending it at the mall like the statists suggest you do. Hey, get rid of your savings. Just go to the mall and spend it all. Get the economy going. That's ridiculous. You can tell it's counterintuitive. You're better off when you're saving your money and you get a stockpile for a rainy day, help your family get through difficult times, pay for a college education. Well, that savings goes into banks that then businesses go and start borrowing to expand their businesses, get better equipment, better computers. They make their workers more productive. More productivity means more revenues, which provide the means to pay higher wages. That's the key to a prosperous society. But integrated in that is the concept of charity. That when people are free to keep their own money, they tend to be more charitable. They've got more to be charitable with. No guarantee, but that's the nature of freedom. There's never a guarantee when it comes to freedom. But that's the difference between us libertarians and the statists, is that we believe in people, we believe in freedom, and we believe that you can count on people voluntarily to provide the sufficient funds for churches and March of Dimes and United Way, museums and universities and all kinds of ameliocenary charitable activity. Which, by the way, brings up the end-of-year fundraising drive for the Future of Freedom Foundation, which we're undergoing right now. Please take a look at my end-of-year letter that's posted on our website. It's at the top of the daily FFF email update. We can't do it without those of you that out there that support our efforts, and we'd greatly appreciate you supporting our efforts. If you like our work, if you like what we're doing for freedom, give us a hand, because that's what we rely on. We rely on your support to keep us going, and the donations that we receive in December are pretty much, by and large, not entirely, what we thrive on for the rest of the year. And we got some exciting stuff. I hope you take a look at my letter. We've got what I think may very well be the most exciting program lined up in the 22-year history of the Future of Freedom Foundation. Get this. We've got a civil liberties tour, college tour, that the Young Americans for Liberty is putting together. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're like this national group that was formed in the wake of Ron Paul's 2008 presidential campaign. They all got fire in the belly for libertarianism, for Austrian economics. They're stout. We're partnering with them to have a college civil liberties tour. And they're lining up the cities right now and the colleges. We're going to do it in February. Keep a look at email update on coming events. We've got 3 panelists. Get this, 3 lawyers. Glenn Greenwald, a liberal. Bruce Fine, a conservative. And me, a libertarian. And we're going to be talking about the war on terrorism, civil liberties. Greenwald blogs for Salon.com. You won't find a better blogger on civil liberties and the war on terrorism than Glenn Greenwald, from a libertarian perspective. It's incredible. He's one of the few people that have stood consistent against the Obama administration's assault on civil liberties, following the Bush administration's assault on civil liberties. He was described by Forbes magazine as one of the 25 most influential liberals in the country. And Bruce Fine, I'm sure you're familiar with Bruce. I mean, he's one of the most spellbinding speakers in the country, and man, just relentless when it comes to civil liberties. And hey, I'm going to be there on the panel, and where I stand on civil liberties. I mean, you go back to our 1990 issues of Freedom Daily, and you'll see my article there, The Forgotten Importance of Civil Liberties. And we've taken a leading role in this area ever since 9/11. Well, now we're going to be putting it all together in a panel. The moderator is going to be Jack Hunter, who's a big writer there for American Conservative. This is going to be fantastic, and we need your support for these kind of programs. We've got the Economic Liberty Lecture Series. It's going to get geared up again with where we partner with the George Mason University Econ Society, the student-run group that's just again fire in the belly for libertarianism and Austrian economics. We're publishing Freedom Daily. We got the email update. We got our new website. I mean, you're going to like our new website. I'm confident of that. Been working hard on it. We've had volunteers helping us transfer all the documents over to the new place where it goes, and now we're working on the design, and we got a lot of good stuff going on here, but we need your support. We can't do it without your support. If you like our work, if you believe in what we're doing, give us a hand. In any event, this will be the last show for the year. I'll be back first week in January. I think it's like January 7th or 8th, something like that. And in the meantime, I want to wish you a great Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and to you and your family. And may we not just advance freedom in 2012, may we achieve a free society. Thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks so much for your great commitment to freedom and to the freedom movement, and your great support of the Future of Freedom Foundation.